I'm Sid, and these are my best friends. My mom, Kim, my dad, Ty, and my sister, Maddie, who before starting her own adventure, joined us in rocking out a state-of-the-art refit on our floating home. Now, we're ready to set sail to die with memories, not dreams, and live dauntless.
Hey everybody, we're back today on the Leopard 50 so that we can do lifelines. Now to do that, we have to drill some holes in my boat. But that means that the push pits are going on, the pull pits are going on, and the stanchions are going in so that we can run Dyneema through there. But first, we have to learn how to splice. So come on along, let's do some splicing and get these lifelines on.
All right, so let's get into it and talk about the tools that we need to do splicing. First things first, you're gonna need some information. So watching this video is a great start, and I'm gonna teach you how to do a simple long berry splice to be able to make something that looks just like this. I've got a camera here set up, so I'll show you how this process goes, and we'll cut back and forth and you can see what that looks like up close, all right? So I'm gonna show you how to do that, but again, first thing you need to do is learn how. How I learned how is through this book that I got from our good friends Jim and Tanya. Well, Kim and I got this before we went on our sailing adventure. They gave us one of these, and they gave us a kit with splicing fits. These guys are varying different size needles, they call them, and these needles allow you to put lines in here and cut through slice lines, splice stuff, and basically route the lines in and out of themselves. This is a really invaluable tool, and I'm going to show you how we use them in kind of even a non-conventional way. Second thing you're going to need is you're going to need a D-splice. This guy allows us to slide inside of the line and grab a tail and fold itself, or fold it in on top of itself. And maybe I'm not describing that quite right, but it'll make sense here in just a second. Of course, you're going to need a tape measure to measure your stuff. You're going to need a marker to be able to mark it, and you're going to need some scissors to cut it. Other than that, that is really, with practice, that's all you need to do some splicing. Now, when we're done with the splice, we are going to lock this splice together, and that's to keep it from coming undone later. And to do that, we're going to do something called whipping, and I'm going to show you that here in a few minutes. But first, let's get to the splice. You got to get some line, and the line I'm using today is called, well, the technical term is ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. It's just fun saying big fancy words like that. You guys know it as a superfiber or something called Dyneema probably. There's also Amstel Blue, Styrotex, Spectra, a bunch of different names. And what it is basically this really cool long chain composite material that is 7 times stronger than steel of the same diameter. This stuff floats. It has the same properties wet or dry. It's easy to repair. It has low chafing. It doesn't rust. There's a bunch of really cool things to use with it. Some people even rig their boats and use this for standing rigging in, of course, much larger diameters. Speaking of diameters, we could use something smaller than this because this stuff is 1/4 inch. It has an 8,600 pound breaking strength, which is 3,900 kilos to you metric folks, and that's a lot of weight. There's never going to be that kind of load on a stanchion post. That stanchion post would fold over long before that. So why do I use something big? Well, it's the biggest line I can get through the stanchion hole, and it's the bigger the line, the more comfortable it is to grab and the easier it is to splice. And it just looks a little bit more, I don't know, robust. But speaking of diameters, it is important when you're coming to splicing because the diameter is going to determine how you measure everything. A long berry splice basically takes the diameter of the line, you multiply that diameter times 72, and that's how much of it you've got to stuff back inside of itself to create a solid splice so it doesn't pull out. Now, this is 1/4 inch line or 6 millimeter, and when we bury that back in, that is going to be 18 inches for us imperial folks, and you metric guys out there, it is about 450 millimeters. Now, how big is the loop? Well, the loop really can be any size that you need it to be. I do the smallest loop as possible because I think it's a nice tight well, just a neat finish. Here, let me pull this up again and I'll show you. Just a little tiny loop. It's only as big as I need it to be. So for those small loops, it's about 3 inches or about 78 millimeters, 75 millimeters. And that's all you really need to know. Other than that, we make sure you've got enough line. Always get a little extra because you can always cut it off, but it's really hard to glue it back on. We're gonna start here. I have an imperial tape measure. Sorry, I don't have anything in metric, but I'll still do the conversions. We want to do an 18-inch berry. So I'm gonna spread this guy out here, and I am gonna measure to 18 inches. And I'm gonna put a mark here. Now I know that I want my loop to be 3 inches. I've been practicing, and I know that a 3-inch loop will get me a nice tight radius, which is what I need for this. All right, enough with that. Now, before we bury it, we need to taper it. And the reason we need to taper it is if you don't, you'd see a big bulge where the tail that you're burying in stops, and then the rest of the line just goes back to the regular diameter. And we want this to look nice. So the idea is you're going to get something that looks tapered just like that. Okay? If you can see that from a distance, it's got a nice shallow taper down to where this guy stops right about here. All right. The way we taper it is we just cut some of it out. There is 12 strands in single braid, and I'm going to come back about 2 hand widths from the end, and I'm going to pull out 5 strands, one at a time. I start with the first one. Don't worry if it bunches up like that. It just lays right back out again. And then I'm going to jump about 1.5 inches down the line, or about 38 millimeters for every subsequent piece of line that I pull out. This allows a gradual taper till we get to the end. The last one's pretty close here, sometimes too close. And I use this fid just as a little pick needle to be able to get it out. All right, now I've got all those pulled out. I'm just going to cut off the excess with these super fancy scissors. And that leaves me a tapered line. You're not going to be able to see it from that distance, but there you go. Now at the very end, it's still kind of bulky, and we still have 7 fibers down here. So I'm going to cut, again, about 1.5 inches or 38 millimeters from the end. I'm going to slice this guy just like that. And as I work this down, what you're going to see is a nice tight taper on the end. Okay? Get all my cutoffs out of the way. Then the last measurement that I need to do is decide where I'm going to put this needle inside. So I line up my 2 marks for my loop. I get all the way to the end. And again, I put roughly 8 fingers, 2 hand widths, and I'm going to put the needle in all the way back here. I push it together to open that up, and it creates like a hollow tunnel on the inside. Then I'm going to push this together to open it up as I slowly feed the needle through. Now, I like to put it against my chest so I don't have to hold it or stand it up on a table. It allows me to hold it here, open it up, and just continue to feed it through. And I'm going to go until I hit that first mark, which is right there. I then just lay the line over, the needle gets exposed, pull the needle through, and I'm going to take this splicing fid and just shove it right down in between there, just like that. And that just holds the line on the needle, and allows me to have two hands free without everything falling apart to be able to make this happen. I'm going to take this tail, I'm going to stuff it between the two wires on the needle. I know it doesn't look like much, but when you pull it right to the end like that, that has got a ton of grip and it's not going to come out. Pull the needle out, and then all I have to do is slowly work this down on the inside. So what I do is I grab the end of this needle and I pull while I'm pushing this direction, and I just work the end right till it goes on the inside. Now once it's inside, it's a really simple pull through. You just have to get past that first entry point. And then I'm just going to pull the line all the way through. You're going to see the needle come out the end of the line where we inserted the needle before. Pull that out. We're done with the needle. And you then just continue to pull this tail through until the mark that we marked on the 18 inches comes all the way down and lines up with the mark we made on the berry side of the line. Now, this first part's going to be for demonstration. I'm actually going to do it twice. I'm going to hold this loop right here where the two lines come together, and I'm going to pinch it, and I'm going to take my other fingers and I'm going to what they call milk it down, and I'm just going to pull this all the way down. Now watch this tail down here. See this, guys? Watch what happens to that tail as I pull it through. It just disappears right into the line. And that is how you get that gradual taper. Okay? Now, we're going to do a lock here in just a second, and I'm going to show you how that lock with the whipping works, because if we don't do it, this line can actually come loose if it's used over and over again. If it's on a static pull, it's on a static load, and it's always under tension, it'll never come loose. However, if it's not, as this line gets worked back and forth, what can happen is just what you're seeing here. Over time, it gets worked back and forth, and this line can come out, which of course means that it's going to fall apart. And that really is only important on the gate, because the gate gets opened and closed over and over again. So I'm going to pull this guy out, smooth the line out, and what's crazy here is you can see it's like nothing ever happened. You can do this over and over again. So if you mess up, don't worry about it. All right, one more time. For those of you in the cheap seats, we mark our 18 inches on the tail. We have our 3-inch mark here for the size that I need. I'm going to line those up. I'm going to lay this out so I can see how far it's going to go inside the secondary line. I'm then going to go 2 hand widths beyond. And that's the entry point for my D-splice. Squeeze this open. Put this on my chest and slowly feed this line all the way through till I get to my second Sharpie mark. And the Sharpie does actually wear off, so don't worry about it. You won't notice it after a while. Hit the mark, fold this over, let the line come through. Take this fid, insert it. Now I've got 2 free hands, I can do everything else. I'm going to take my gate hook. I'm going to loop this through the gate hook, just like that. And I can just leave it loose. Again, I want this to go all the way around in one big circle so that this doesn't get twisted. I want to keep all the line laying the same direction. If you guys out there that have been splicing longer than me have a better way to do this, I'd love for you to chime in and let everybody know in the comments. Okay, I get to this point, I'm going to pull on this again while I push here and just gently massage it down inside. Now I'm going to pull the line out, pull that out of there. Oh, look at that, that's a little ratty there. Let's trim that up. Okay, pull this guy tight here and just slowly work it. This really just takes patience and a little bit of practice. Once you learn how to do it, you'll see how the line, what they call, creeps. So we're going to lock this to the loop that I want, and then when we tie it onto the lifelines, I'm actually going to splice one end, go to the other end, do a splice, and then I'm going to stretch the line and unsplice it. I just want to get all of the slack out of the line. All right, pull this through. Again, splice gets buried, and now I know that that is exactly what I'm looking for. Or maybe I want that splice to be a little bigger so I can actually pull this out just a little bit, center the loop, and then as I milk this down, it'll lock again and it won't come loose. All right, now let's whip it.
Whip it good.
Sorry. We have a bunch of needles that come with this sailmaker kit or sail repair kit. Get one of these. Wax that lubricates the needle so you can feed it through sailcloth and what have you. There's some waxed white line that came in this kit. I am using a black whipping twine that's already got wax on it. And I'm using this palm thimble, I call it. I know there's a bunch of different names for it, but it's basically just like a thimble, but it allows you to put a bunch of force to force a needle through without trying to, well, stab your finger. So we need, believe it or not, for that little tiny splice, where is that, or that whipping, this little short whipping, there's almost 3 feet or a meter of line in that little bitty thing. So make sure you leave yourself a little bit extra. It's really reasonably priced, and it's always better to have a little extra and cut it off than to have to redo it. I've done that. I'm sure almost everybody has sewn on a button or seen somebody do it. So this, you're just going to thread the needle, pull, oh, I don't know, foot, 1/3 of a meter out the other side, just so when I'm pulling through on the needle, it doesn't slip off the end. On the other end, I'm going to show you something cool that my mom showed me. To tie a knot in the end, instead of trying to take this and do all that nonsense, you just hold it with the between your thumb and forefinger and do one wrap, like so, and then you just roll it and pull through. And it works awesome when you do it right. Just like that. Isn't that cool? Thanks, Mom. I'm gonna cut off the excess. Leave about, I don't know, a centimeter there, 1/2 inch-ish. Now, the only other tool you're gonna need for this process is gonna be a pair of pliers. This is gonna be invaluable. Maybe on your first one you won't, but as you go along, it's gonna be really necessary. I'm gonna make some, or apply some tension on this, because I like to do these these whippings when they are tied off, because, well, it gives you a little bit of resistance. So I'm stepping on it underneath the table, and then I can pull on it right here. Simple lock. Anywhere past where this goes through in the full diameter of the line, you can do the whip. Most people do it at the end, probably because it makes the most sense and, well, it looks the nicest. So I come just behind this, just a skosh, and I'm going to slide this needle through and try to bisect right in the middle of the line, okay? Pull it through until it hits the knot. I like to come back around and go exactly through the exact same hole, or just slightly off the same hole again. So it's a half wrap. And then, continuing, I do a 90-degree. You can do this a bunch of different ways. It's really, there's no right or wrong way. This is just how I happen to like doing it. And I noticed that when I do that, and then I take this and wrap it around my fingers and give it a tug, it locks it really tight and the line doesn't creep or relax back out on me. Now, you definitely want to take the needle off for this one, because you're going to be using this line and pulling on it, and if you leave the needle on here, I promise you're going to stab yourself. So let's put the needle off to the side for a minute. And this next step, we're going to fast forward through, but you're basically just wrapping this around until you get about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, or 12 to 19 millimeters. And anywhere in there is more than sufficient. When we're done wrapping it, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do, I call it like a cage stitch, but it basically encloses all of the wraps around the line. I'll show you that when we get to it here in just a second. So, rethread our needle. Interestingly enough, you are gonna get a wax residue on your hands. It washes right off, but you're gonna feel kind of sticky, like you've been in a kindergarten after lunch. Oh, what did I do? I just put that, what the hell am I thinking? You don't want that on there right now. All right, give it a nice tug, and then we're gonna wrap, and you want all of these wraps to be right next to one another, so you cannot see the line underneath. I wrap, I hold the backside with my finger, move the rest of the working line through, then I give it a tug, I wrap, do another lap, hold it, and so on and so forth. All right, so now we have all the wraps done. It can get a little bit coiled up, this line, so you want to run the line out just to get all the extra twists out. If you don't have an assistant, this part's going to be a little challenging. You want to keep a finger on the line to keep it from coming loose. While you do that, you've got to thread the needle again. So I like to hold the needle here, and then I can use this hand to try to work the line back in. Occasionally, after threading these needles a couple times, you have to take and trim off the excess because it'll get frayed at the very end. All right, so now we've got this tight. I'm going to hold this down to keep it from coming loose. And I'm going to take this needle, I'm going to push it all the way through just like we did at the very beginning to tie the first knot. If you do this on a cutting board, if it's up in the air on a stanchion line, the needle just goes through the bottom. But for right now, I'm going to push it through until it touches the cutting board. All right, and then I'm going to take my hand here and I'm going to push all the way through. It's pretty tight in there. Use the pliers to pull it. All right. So now what I've done is I've created one stitch. I want to make sure that it lines up and it's nice and neat. And once that's done, I can just give it a tug, and now it locks it in place. So it's not going to come unloose while I'm working at it. You see there's a little bit of gap here and there. Sometimes when you're wrapping it, you have a bulbous piece of the line. You can actually just take and compress this guy down a little bit, work it, and then you can take your finger nail and collapse it down. Just push it all together, just like that. See? Super easy. All right, so now we got the line. We only have 4 more stitches, 2 knots, and we're done. That sounds like a lot, but we're basically going to cage or captivate the end of these wraps perpendicular. So where this line comes out, we're going to go straight down the line here, and we're going to run a stitch through right here. Use the pliers to pull it through, just like that. Okay. Now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to start it here as if I was going to come back out right here. But in fact, I want to insert here and I want to come out right here, which is halfway between the two. That may not be the right way for you guys, but that's the way I do it, because this really isn't adding any strength to the actual line. It's just keeping everything from coming unraveled. All right, so we've got 1 on either side. Now I'm going to again go perpendicular all the way to the end, line my needle up, put my palm in, push through, just like that. Okay. Now this time I will go all the way through to there. Straight through. Remember, if you go through and it's not in the right spot, just use the pliers, pull it back out if you can't get it by hand. All right. So now I have all of those lashings done. I'm going to take this last line that's here. I'm going to knot this end line over. Just gonna, so I pull it through, and there's a loop here, guys. You basically just take the needle and run it through the loop that's left over. And that creates a knot. You can do it twice. I don't think it's necessary. So I then take this line and I stab it straight through again. So the tail is now going all the way through the line. So it has to work its way out of the line before it can even undo the knot. And if you're super anal, you can do another one. Okay. That is it. Only thing you have to do is to cut off that tail. And that's it. Piece of cake. Now when I get to the boat, I only have to do it like 40 times. But who's counting? So, thanks again for watching, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you thought, well, it helped or you liked it, hit the like button. If you've been here before and you haven't subscribed, please do so. And of course, if you're new, please subscribe and you'll catch every new video every time we post one if you hit that bell as well. And patrons, thank you guys so much for all of your support. You've been overwhelmingly supportive and we really, really appreciate it. More stuff like this will be on our Patreon page, so you can jump over if you'd like to join us with the crew. Otherwise, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next week.